Well, it's 7, so, hi, model isn't working today, that's annoying. Sometimes my phone just decides to not connect to computer, and model doesn't work, and that's annoying. Right, music. Have music playing in the background this time, once again. Been a while since I did this. Just cause, I don't know. Usually I'm playing other music in the background, but this is music that I can use without worrying about copyright. So it's nice when music isn't the focus of the stream to any degree. Fuck, what was the... I'm trying to, find, Dylan's credits for the description. Yeah, so... Nisioisin, huh? I don't know. I have no idea how the stream is going to go. Because the idea was that I'd just come on to stream and talk about Nisioisin for a bit. Which is something I imagine I can do, because, he is my favorite author. So, I don't know. I made a list, right, you can see it now on screen, hopefully. I made a list of everything he's done, and so I figured, the best way to go about this is to just, talk about stuff he's, talk about everything he's done, chronologically, more or less. There's gonna be a few places where I break from it. A lecture from a professor in Niesiology. God, if I ever do go back to college, I will write academic essays on Nisioisin. But yeah, so, I don't know. I'm just gonna start. First up is Zanagoto. I feel like Zanagoto is Nisioisin's, as far as the West is concerned, it's his other work. Everyone knows, or not everyone knows Monogatari, but, people know Nisioisin through Monogatari, and, if you know a second work of his, I guess this isn't the only other thing of his that people know in the West, but it's the other thing that people know of as a Nisioisin work. Especially through the novels. We'll see if, Bishonen Tantaidan is able to make a lasting impression in that regard. But anyway, Zanagoto. Talking about Zanagoto, we can talk about Katanagatari and Bishonen Tantaidan later. Zanagoto is cool. I got introduced to it through the, Shaft OVA, which looks really gorgeous. A lot of people deride it for, looking too similar to Monogatari, or, having a bit of a derivative style from Shaft, but I think it really does stand out on its own. I think it has a lot of unique aspects as far as, Shaft's filmography goes. And I think because what it adapts was literally the first published work that Nisioisin ever had, I think it is better to just read it, or to watch it, rather than read it, at least at first. Because I do really like the book, but I think I think it's better when you're, watching it. I think the visual element does add a lot to that specific mystery. And of course, the Yuki Kajiura soundtrack, is one of her best. It is fantastic. Gorgeous stuff. And, so yeah, with, Kubikiri, I don't know, I think it's a neat book, but I think it's a little light, considering all that Nisioisin would do. But it sets up a lot of, common themes in his works. You have the sort of, unremarkable boy, and like extraordinary girl pairing. You have all these like this big cast of quirky and notable characters. That sort of like all of his stuff ends up being like this. Nisioisin. Hello, Math Wiz. But yeah, I feel like the Cubic Kitty cycle really establishes like the Nisioisin style. But it's the second book in the series, Kubishime Romanticist, which like defines Zanakoto for me, because it's just a really fantastic mystery, and I don't know how to really explain it without I don't know how to explain it without spoiling it, like, what makes it so good. I really recommend reading Zanagoto, even if just to read, Kubishime Romanticist. Because it is just a, like... It's a very compelling mystery, in that, like, the characters involved in the mystery are ones that you will care about, and, you want to see justice, see them get justice in a way, you know? But it's also a very compelling mystery in that, like, the characters present are all very good. Anything that happens that doesn't directly tie into the mystery is also very compelling. And, I don't know, like, it's hard to say what I like about it without spoiling it, so, next in the series was a fucking Danganronpa book. It's a Zanagoto book about a high school which trains extraordinary students. Hello, Hawthorne. But yeah, so it's just like, Kubitsuru, I believe. It's like, the main character has to, sneak into a school to rescue a girl. And the school has this, like, hidden past and background, and everyone there has extraordinary powers and stuff, and it's like, I didn't really imagine Kazutaka Kodaka, reading that and thinking, like, I can make an entire game out of this. But, unfortunately, like, I've seen a lot of people say that that's, like, the worst Zanagoto book, and I'm inclined to agree, because immediately after that, it's, Psychological, which is, 2 parts, and it's, and they're all mysteries. This one is just, like, off in the mountains, thinking about a scientist, and you learn more about, like, the characters' pasts and stuff, and it's, like, sort of fleshes out the main characters in a way that they hadn't been fleshed out before. Up to that point, it was more about the periphery characters. And so that's, 2 very, very good books with, a very, very good ending. Like, a lot of Zanagoto comes down to the endings. And you really see that in the OVA, where it's, like, the epilogue is a 40-minute episode. That's just, like, explaining everything that happened to that point. So yeah, I don't know. I really recommend Zanagoto. If you, like, if you're interested in Nisioisin, I think, like, that's a great place to start. If you like Monogatari, I feel like that's a great place to start to really get a sense of what Nisioisin's style is. It's a fucking ride. Yeah, no, it's... Every Zanagoto book is a ride. It never stops. I'm still reading the 6th one, Cannibal Magical, or is it Magical Cannibal? I think it's Cannibal Magical, which features a plural serial killer, which is something I'm kind of into. I've really enjoyed what I've read of it so far, and like I just need to actually fucking finish it. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm trying to think of like what else to say about Zanagoto. I'm blanking on the character's name. The fucking, the main character boy and the knife twink from, Kabushi Mission Kiss. Moving on! Next up in Nisioisin's, bibliography, fuck. Need to... Okay, here we go. The JDC Tribute series. They're I couldn't quite get into Nisio, through the Bake novel. I'll try this one out. Yeah, the thing with Nisio is that all of his books, like, are quite different. He has a very good sense of, a very good narrator, like, voice, where every narrator can be their own character to a very strong degree. You don't really get the sense that it's, like, all one author's, work until you kind of, like, take it more, broadly. Each one is so, like, strongly written that you can just get a sense for the person writing it until you realize it's, like, no, that's just one of his, like, 100 books. See, I really recommend, like, if one Nisioisin book doesn't work for you, like, check out one of the others. He has a lot. But yeah, JDC Tribute. Untranslated. And, the only notable thing about this is how unnotable it is. That, like, the only reason I know what the JDC series is because I've seen, I know about the fucking tribute series that Nisioisin did. That was pretty early in his career, and it's like, I don't know. I will read it someday, hopefully. And probably I'll read, like, the JDC books that precede it, but I know literally nothing about them other than that they are presumably detective fiction. Sakai. Sakai is also untranslated. But, notably, Sakai has a translation in the works. I believe it's, Sway translations. They're also translating Sadagoto. And they're working on Sakai and a few other, Nisioisin series. So I'm really excited for that. I'm looking forward to when that happens, and when Sakai finally gets a, translation. Because, I don't know, it seems like a neat series. Kind of just burning through them now, because it's a lot of stuff that isn't translated. Ningen! It's a Zaragoto spin-off, focusing on a twink with a knife. Not translated. Risika. With Risika, it's a Magical Girl series, which makes me instantly interested, because I'm a fan of Magical Girl, like, otherwise. So the idea of Nisio doing Magical Girl is, like, super compelling. But, I'm, like, it just got a manga adaptation this year, and it's by the, that one Mario Kata show from last year, or the year before, that, people talked about. That's the person who's drawing it. And it seems really cool. And whenever Manga Dex is back up, I'll go read it. Risika also has a translation in the works from Sway. And then here's the big one. People know Nisioisin through Monogatari, and for good reason. I'm gonna be focusing mostly on Nisioisin's, like, novels here, so... like, yes, Monogatari has an anime, but that's not really what I want to talk about here, because I could probably do a whole stream on, like, singing the praises of Tatsuya Oishi, and what he did to Bake and, Kizu, and, like, what Itamura did to everything else. So... Not talking about the anime. Monogatari is fucking incredible. Well, really, it's like... It's... Even within Monogatari, I mentioned that, like, Nisio is very good at giving each perspective its own, like, unique feel. And you get that sense in Monogatari, in later books, once you start getting different perspectives in the writing. For example, in second season, like, you get Hanekawa and Nadeko and Kaiki and Kambaru all as narrators, and they are completely different from Koyomi. And, like, whatever similarities there are more, like, similarities in their character more than similarities in the narration. Which feels just absolutely incredible. I'm realizing now that I probably could have ordered this differently, because I also want to talk about Holic, Another Holic, which is, it's a Holic spin-off novel that Nisioisin wrote. I'm skipping ahead here because I formatted things poorly. So I want to talk about Holic first, before I talk about, like, Bakemonogatari and everything that followed. Because I feel like Holic really, or Another Holic really, like, sets, it says a lot about what Monogatari was at the start. Because, it has a lot of the same structure as Bake in a lot of ways. That I can kind of feel like as soon as Nisio finished writing Another Holic, he was just like, I want to keep writing something like this, but in my own way. And then just, like, went on to write Monogatari. In the way that, like, fic writers, or, like, fanfic writers will turn their fanfic into, like, full, like, unique stories after a point. And I think, I think Another Holic, like, I wasn't a Holic fan at the time I read it, actually. Oh yeah, I just realized how similar they are. Yeah, like, Nisioisin cites Clamp as an influence. And you can really pick that up in a lot of his different works. Because there's a lot of, like, overlap in, themes and presentation, They're very similar creators, and I appreciate that. And as a Clamp fan and as a Nisioisin fan, I, like, really love Another Holic, and heavily recommend it. But that's actually what got me into the Holic manga. I read Another Holic, and then was like, this is good. I want to go read the series this is based around. So then I did, and I loved it. But the thing is, like, Another Holic transitions really well into Bake, because it's the same sort of, like, you know, ordinary guy, and, like, authority figure rooted in a magical world, doing tasks and stuff, and, like, having to pay back a debt, and having run-ins with a variety of, like, fantastical events, ordinary people experiencing extraordinary, circumstances and such, and having to help them. And so that's, like, how you really, get to, Bake. Is that, you know, all those themes went on to become, the serialized version of Bakemonogatari. And the thing about Bakemonogatari is that it was serialized at first. It didn't just start as a, like, words. It wasn't released as a novel at first. It was serialized in a magazine, and then after a certain point, you know, there were 3 arcs finished, so they were bundled together and released together. And then the next book, which became Bakemonogatari 2, which is Nadeko Snake and Tsubasa Cat, that was, those were written after the fact, all at once. And you can pick up on differences, even just between Bake 1 and Bake 2, that are owing to that. Because I feel like Monogatari is known for being a harem, but it's really only in Bake 2 when those harem elements are really added. Because, you know, in Hitagi Crab, the main character, like, Koyomi finds this girl and helps her and stuff. And then the next arc, they're dating, you know. There's a new girl introduced, but she's a grade schooler. And so it's like, it's not really building a harem at that point. The next character introduces a lesbian. And then once it, you know, so it's like, you have those three, and it's not really, it just has a cast. And then Nautico Snake happens, and I think that's where people start to, like, I think that's where people would have started to, like, pick up on it being a harem. Because, Nautico is a lot more connected to Koyomi than any other characters were. And then Tsubasa Cat, is just, a lot more irrevocably tied to that. Harem implies that every girl wants to fuck out Aragi, and I don't get the impression that's the case. It isn't the case, and that's what I mean, like... You have these characters, like Hachikoji or the Kambaru, who aren't really into him. But then you do have characters like Nadeko, and Hanekawa, who are. And, the series, like, plays with that. I think it is, like, more of a subversion of harems than, like, a straightforward harem. But, like, Nisioisin tends to write on a book-by-book basis, and that's why, even within a given series, things can be so scattershot. And I feel like the intent between the first and second Bake books kind of changed from, you know, I want to write a series about like, a cool character, or, like, this character solving, like, supernatural mysteries, to, I want to write my version of a harem. And after that, it's kind of like people were just like, well, now Monogatari is just always a harem. But I don't think that's the case, like, because the next book was Kizu, and Kizu is like horror action, kind of. And, you know, you have a bit of, like, Hanekawa and Koyomi's, like, relationship, and I'm using that in a more platonic term, but that's not really the focus. It's more about, you know, vampires and stuff. And then Nisei is about families and fakes, and it's like, you can pick up on harem elements there, but I don't feel like that's the case for a lot of it. It's just like something that gets dropped in every now and then, more than being, like, an active part of the plot. But I think the second season is really where, really where, like, the books take off. I think that the anime is stronger from the start. Because in second season, that's when you start getting, alternate perspectives from characters. That's when you get, you know, Hanekawa as a narrator, that's when you get Kambaru as a narrator, that's when you get Kaiki as a narrator, that's when you get Nadeko as a narrator. And I think all of them, like, really broaden the series a lot, and I really, like, every novel where Koyomi isn't narrating is very interesting to me. And I really love both the Hana and Neko White novels. I think they're very strong. Like, they're among my favorite pieces of writing ever. And then, I don't know. With final season, the direction kind of changes again. It's like, begin wrapping up the series, and then it sort of closed the door on itself in a way that Nisio clearly didn't want to stop writing these characters. So he left a back door. And since then, it feels like he just writes Monogatari books whenever he wants to. He has a plan, and, like, we know what the rest of, like, what the next several books are gonna be, through the end of, Monster Season. But it feels like that's just gonna, like, happen on his own schedule. And I feel like that's just because, like, Nisioisin writes on a book-to-book basis. he just writes what interests him and then moves on. And what the case with Monogatari is that it's just a scenario where he can keep being interested in possibilities. And I don't know. I really love Monogatari. I think there's a lot to the books that the anime doesn't get across. That, like, I think that there's a lot about Nisioisin's craft as a writer that is intrinsically tied to the written word that you can't really adapt. Because, even when you're putting words on screen, like Oishi did, you can't just move on. Like, you can't just, like, get everything. Stuff will be lost. And Monogatari, as befitting the name, is, you know, a story. It's, like, very written word. And even reading it in a translation, I feel like I'm missing something, because as I'm learning more Japanese, and, like, I can, like, you know, read more into what it was in Japanese, it's like, there is a lot there. Like, Shinobu's name is made up of the kanji for heart and blade, with heart under blade. And that's just like a kind of wordplay that can't translate. You cannot get that kind of thing to be, like, to work in English, because it is built into the Japanese language. And I think that's fascinating. I think it's, like, something pretty unique. And I think that's, like, one of the things that, like, makes Nisioisin's writing so idiosyncratic, so quirky. Is that, like, he does shit like that. Stuff that, like, you know, maybe not even everyone in his audience will catch that. So I don't know. Next up is Katanagatari. I think this is, like, kind of rounds out the trio of, like, stuff that Nisioisin stuff that people know. But I feel like because Katanagatari got an anime so much earlier than it got a translation, people know it through the anime and don't really know it as Nisioisin work. I haven't seen the anime yet. I plan to, but it just, like, hasn't quite caught my eye yet. But the books are very good in a way that I expect of Nisioisin, like compelling writing, compelling story, quirky cast of characters. Going back to what I mentioned in Zaragoza, you have that, like, male-female pair of the sort of, like, more, like, normal or edgeless protagonist and a very, like, quirky girl. I know a lot of people love Katanagatari. It actually isn't in my favorite Nisioisin stories. Just because something about it, like, just never really clicked with me. I think the ending is cool. Not gonna go into that because people, if you're not spoiled on that already, you deserve to not be spoiled on it. But I think it's... I also think it was an interesting experiment, because it was written one book a month for a year. And I don't know. I don't have a whole lot to say about it. Oh yeah, the fucking translation is awful. I am I'm far from the first person to say this, but holy shit, that translation is, like, 2 steps away from unreadable. It's like, it doesn't understand that if you're going to translate works, you need to fucking translate them. So it leaves so much stuff untranslated, and then is like, here, just read it in the footnotes. That don't, like, as if that doesn't make the page, like, hideous to read, and, like, constantly disrupting any sort of flow. God, Vertical, like, really fucked that one up. And I'm still annoyed at that. But I guess if I want... the Keikaku means play and approach to localization. Yeah, pretty much. It's like... It'll be like, a word is left in Japanese, and then you go down to the footnotes, and it's like, this means a wooden sword. Why the fuck couldn't you just have it say, like, a wooden sword, then? Or shit like that. Like... Bad translation. I mean, I still recommend checking it out. Because, you know, why not? But I don't think it's very good. I don't think that's the best way to experience it. What I've seen of the anime looks gorgeous. So check that out. Medaka Box. I've only read a little of Medaka Box because I'm not happy with the translation that's available. Because it's a fan translation that uses a lot of... It doesn't really get... like, what the series is. Which is a nice way to say it uses slurs. And the characters would definitely not be the type to use slurs. I can tell it was like, it's like dated back to like 2014. And it sucks. And so, one day I'll just read it raw. And I think I'll get more out of it that way. But, you know, I've read a little of that terrible translation, and it's a cool series. I mean, it's like Nisioisin doing a battle school series. Definitely more of an action-y thing. Katana Gatheri also has a lot of action, but it, compared to like Medaka Box, where it's like the action is the focus. And it even ran in Weekly Shonen Jump too. But I need to watch the anime one of these days. Cause it's fucking Gainax. Even if it's like the era of Gainax where the studio was basically dead, they weren't dead yet. So I want to check that out at some point. I don't have a lot more to say about that. Densetsu. Densetsu is untranslated. Sway is working on a translation. I look forward to it. I really need to get to Medaka Box? Yeah. Like, if it had a good translation, I would be like, you should, you know, cover it on Nensho. But, maybe, you know, put it on the Nensho backlog. And if it ever gets a, like, if it ever gets a better translation, read it then. But yeah, Densetsu, untranslated, Sway translation. Has a manga, though. I read, like, it has, like, 3 chapters translated, maybe 2. I've read those. It seems neat. It's Nisioisin doing a tokusatsu, I think? No, I didn't, like, I wasn't able to really get enough about what the concept is from what I read. But it seems cool. I look forward to when it does get more formally translated. Bokyaku Tantai, or the Forgetful Detective series, or the Kyoko Okitegami series. This is something that I feel like has a lot of potential to blow up in the West, because cute girl. Kyoko has a fantastic design. Her design is basically Hanekawa, but with white hair, which has led to funny fan theories that they're the same person. When there are details about the series that explicitly contradict that, in the first book even. But I don't know. I really enjoy it. It has a manga, which I recommend. It has a J-drama, which I really recommend. Like live-action J-drama. And the novels have translations, but they're not, like, fantastic. They're, you know, You can read them. I've read them, but I don't really recommend, like, I suspect, given that Vertical Vertical are basically like the Nisioisin book people at this point. So I suspect that they'll get around to Bokyaku Tantai at some point, considering at this point they only have one Nisio series to be translating, and that's a finished one that can only last so long. So I feel like Bokyaku Tantai is going to make an appearance in English at some point, and I'm looking forward to that, so I can push it on everyone, and maybe it'll get an anime. Like, maybe when Shaft are done with the boys, they'll go back to Kyoko. You can read them. The highest form of translation praise. I mean, okay, I will say this much. The fucking Bokyaku Tantai translation is still better than Vertical's Katanagatari translation. The bar is on the floor, but it's able to clear that at least. Yeah, check out the J-drama though. Very, very good moments. Hello, Cammy. Hello. So, after Bokyaku Tantai, I'm trying to remember what order stuff. Ogiri! Okay, so Ogiri is a series of one-shots that Nisioisin wrote with a bunch of different authors. Manga one-shots, specifically. And they're a mix of, like, interesting, terrible, really cool, terrible, fun. It's like a very mixed bag, but I recommend checking out the ones that are translated. But one of them in particular was about a guy who had won a death game and had the power to see at every possible decision point see 100 possibilities from what that decision could lead to. Like, just everything has 100 ways you can tackle it, and he can see all of them at the same time and pick which one he wants to go with. And that's how he won it. And the whole chapter is about, well, he's won, and now he gets to have any wish, so he's going to use his power to try and figure out what he wants to do with this wish. And so he sort of, you know, looks at 100 different wishes that he could have. And that leads us to Juni Taisen, which is the story about a guy with the power to see 100 different pathways in a death game. And it's Zodiac themed. And it got an alright anime. I prefer the novel. It's funny that people complain about being spoiled by Juni Taisen when Juni Taisen is, like, the story fucking spoils itself. It's the Zodiac race. Nisioisin wrote a death game adaptation of the Zodiac race, and people are trying to claim that they're being spoiled. Like, I don't know. If someone fucking wrote a death game based on a, like, Western, on a Western folktale, you hopefully wouldn't see people complaining about spoilers. But, I don't know, Juni Taisen is cool. I was definitely surprised by it. It had more to it than I was expecting, which I should have expected from Nisioisin. It's very action-oriented, especially in the anime. But I think it has, I say a lot. It has good characters. It has a good story. Even if the best character, deserved way better. And I definitely recommend checking it out. If you don't want to read a whole novel of that, like, check out the anime. I think the anime is not so much worse than the book that it's not worth checking out. over it. But definitely I do recommend checking out the novel. The novel is very good. But unfortunately it's only one novel so far in the West, but there was a sequel that's like the Western and Eastern Zodiacs fighting. I don't know what the fuck it means, but I really want to read it someday. It seems really interesting. And after that is Bishonen Tatedan. So this is a relevant series. The anime is airing right now, and it's very good, and you should watch it. But I don't know. I like Bishonen Tatedan only recently, as of like late last year, I believe, got a novel translation. Boys, yeah. So the novel translation is very recent, but a volume of the manga has been translated for a while. And so I read that a couple years back, and it gave me a horrible impression of the series. And so for the longest time I was like, I don't like this series. And when the novel was when the like an adaptation was announced, I was like, can you please adapt one of the better series that Nisio has instead of this? And then the first novel came out, and I was like, well, I'm not happy that Vertical is translating this because they have things I'd rather them translate, but I'll read it. And then I read it, and I was kind of blown away at how much better it was than the manga. And Leggy Boy, Heel Boy, Miku Boy, Red Boy, Art Boy, Glasses Boy. Yeah. The six boys. I think the fact that it has a trans character kind of... I don't think that was something I was expecting. And I'm really interested to see if in later novels that's a thread that gets picked up on, or if it's just going to be a baseline facet of the series going forward. I've only read the second book, or like the first two books, and something of the third book. I need to read more of the third book. It's on my desk. But it's a very interesting series. I think... I don't know how intentful it was for it to be about, like, transgender issues in particular. I don't know if it was written with the intent to show an AFAB person with transmasculine dysphoria. But that's what ended up happening because it is very intentfully focusing on gender in any sort of facet. And so it ends up with a trans character regardless of if it was intentional. And I hope it was intentional. And I hope that it is intentional and it goes somewhere, because that would be interesting to see. But I don't know. I really like this series now, but I haven't been. I have only been able to read a few of the novels because the translation only started relatively recently. So I only have so much to say about it. Oh yeah, fun fact: Bishonen Tatedan was originally supposed to be a Bokeku Tantai thing. Like, Nisioisin conceived of this this club of boy detectives, and then he was like, wait, actually this is a genius idea. These boys can just be their own series. They don't need to just be one thing in a Kyoko book. And so then they went on to become their own series, and then that series was popular enough to get an anime, and now here we are. I feel like I'm racing through these, but also, like, I probably could go a lot deeper into some of these, but yeah, doing so can be kind of hard at times. Hello, Crystal Cloud Sea and Guyantinos? Oh, that one. Hello. But yeah, so, Bichenen Tanteidan is a thing. And then... Shonen Shoujo. This is the worst Nisioisin series, without a doubt. It's a series about a boy who wants to kill a girl. And also, very we live in a society shit. It's not good. It's really bad. And I really don't... call me Tina, got it. I really don't like the art style it has, too. So it's just, like, really unpleasant the entire way through. And I wish it just wouldn't. It was just bad. It felt like a parody of Nisioisin almost. In ways that, like, don't really fit Nisioisin. But it's like someone who thinks that they know Nisioisin was like, I will write a Nisioisin thing. And it's, I don't know. If you want to read a thing about murder, I guess that's, yeah, go read that, I guess. But I did not like it. Seishun Kijinden Nishio. This is a gag manga that is just Nisioisin patting himself on the back. Because it's a crossover between every Nisioisin work. And it just has all the characters going to school and stuff. It's cute. It's only like 3 chapters translated. But, you know, if you're a big Nisioisin fan like me, there's an appeal for it. I've known other people, you know, who would get something out of it. But I don't think it's... You need to be a Nisioisin fan to get anything out of it. In the same way that it's like, it's, you know, a work celebrating an author's other works. And so there's only so much you can get from that. But, I don't know. It's cute in concept. Right. Nishio Gakuen. That got cut off. There we go. And here are some Nisioisin tie-in novels. Death Note, Another Note. So, I talked about Another Holic earlier, and I won't talk about that again. But I think, Another Note is kind of interesting, because it's a very straightforward murder mystery in a Nisioisin style. I have seen Death Note, but that was in high school for me. So I barely remember it at this point. Like, I could remember enough to pick up on when there were, on when it was doing, like, tying in. But for the most part, it kind of missed me in that regard, and it was just, like, a neat mystery. And it was a neat mystery. If you can get your hands on a copy, I do recommend checking it out. But it's, I wouldn't say it's, like, really essential. You know, the two demographics for it are Nisioisin fans and Death Note fans, and I am exactly one of those. If you are either of them, check it out. I talked about Another Holic. Fun fact, Nisioisin did a JoJo novel, Over Heaven. Over Heaven is cool because it's, spoilers for part 6, but I'll keep it light. Dio has a journal, and this is that journal, basically. It's written from Dio's perspective, about, like, during the events of... It's written during the events of part 3. And so it's very, like, Dio, like, reflecting on his history, and just being like, my mother was a good person, and that's why I hate her. She's the worst person of all, because she had good intentions, and I am absolutely evil. And, like, Over Heaven feels like the kind of book that Nisio was born to write. because he is just so good at capturing Dio's character and perspective, and just, like, making this guy to be the most evil fucker alive, while also, like, making him, like, sympathetic. It you know, a lot of it is dedicated to making him just, like, super evil and super awful. But in the end, it doesn't go without, like, giving him pathos. And, like, I am a big JoJo fan, and unlike, Another Holic or Another Note, I think you do need to be a JoJo fan to get anything out of this. But if you are a JoJo fan, it's like, I think this is almost a must-read. On like, yeah, on the scale of, like, Purple Haze feedback for part 5. Where it's just, like, it does so much for that, for that part, or for the parts it ties into, that, like, you should read it. Like, track down a fan translation. And definitely check it out. And then, some one-shots Nisioisin wrote. Ningyo ga Ningyo is untranslated. Refugee Detective is untranslated. Imperfect Girl is translated as a manga, and I'm gonna talk about that manga, because I haven't been talking about manga adaptations too much, but it's the only way I can talk about this series, and I fucking love Imperfect Girl. Imperfect Girl is one of Nisio's, like, best stories. It's very heartfelt and human, in a way a lot of his other works are, while also, it was, made for his, 10th anniversary as a writer. And you can really kind of get a sense for him trying to, like, both celebrate his history, while also telling a story which is, like, very much a story that he would tell. I think it's a very beautiful story. Check out the manga, because the manga, like, the manga looks gorgeous as well. Just very strong, abstract art. Perfect Girl is just, like, such a fantastic and interesting and unique story. Because it's about a, like, college, like, not dropout, but just, like, a guy who's just kind of, like, bumbling through college, bumbling through life, who gets kidnapped by a grade school girl who holds him at knife point and locks him away in her closet. And then it's about, you know, everything that follows. And it's such an Nisioisin concept, but it goes such good places, and it's just really, really, really good. It is definitely one of my favorite Nisioisin works, and one of the ones that I recommend most highly. Ripogra is, once again, untranslated. Nisioisin has a lot of untranslated works. The Veiled Man Hypothesis. Once again, untranslated. One sec, water. And Delivery Room. God, the day on Annie Twitter when this was announced, that was just last year. So, you know, if you're on Annie Twitter, you probably saw about this. This is a death game series written by Nisioisin about pregnant mothers. And Annie Twitter decided that that is the most Nisioisin thing ever. And I feel like that's a case of people, like, making caricature of Nisioisin without, like, really knowing him. Because I don't think it is. Like, I know. There is certainly something to it that, like, has a Nisio quality, but I don't think it's, like, definitionally Nisio. Granted, I haven't read it. Once again, it's untranslated. But I think people, like, kind of jumped at the premise a bit. I know. Nisioisin did good with his other death game. I'm sure this one's cool, too. Fuck, what was after this? Oh, yeah, Maze Monogatari. So this is similar to Nishio Gakuen. That it's a crossover between all of his different works. And this one is just, like, Koyomi from Monogatari gets to meet protagonists, protagonist girls from all of his different other series. And he, in a lot of them, he gets the shit beaten out of him, is what I've heard. And that sounds really cool. And I'll read it one day, but it is something that, like, similar to Nishio Gakuen, you need to know Nisioisin works to really get it, because it is just, like, crossovers and crossovers and crossovers. So, I'm excited to read it whenever I can. And then, right, at the end here, Nisio has 1 billion uncollected works. Often just, like, in the form of, like, short stories. Either for, like, some of his different series, or, as, like, manga one-shots, or short stories, or whatever. Nisioisin is a very prolific writer, and that shows up in his uncollected works. And I think it would be cool if, like, one of these days he did a collection of all of his different Monogatari short stories that he's written over the years. I would be very interested in checking that out. And then I believe this is the end. Yeah, okay. So yeah. That is all of Nisioisin's works. I don't know what else to say at this point, so I might just ramble unless anyone in the audience has questions. I think Nisioisin is a very fascinating writer. I think, as I said, like, a lot of his stuff comes down to his ability to write very strong perspectives for characters. That he is able to make these characters be really unique and identifiable without really without making it feel like I have a quiz to pass around at the end of lecture. I should have made one. But yeah, Nisio, like, has all these different characters with these very strong perspectives, and they never blend, and they never feel like they are treading the same ground. And they never feel like they're, like, they can be replaced with one another. But they always feel like they are Nisioisin characters, you know? No one writes a book like Nisioisin. And I think, both in the way that Nisioisin has been influential and the way that Nisioisin was influenced is interesting to look at. I mentioned clamp influence, but, Nisio was also significantly influenced by, like, JoJo and Boogie Pop and, like, light novels of the 90s. And it's interesting to see, like, how that all coalesced into this really avant-garde writer who has some of the, like, who is responsible for the most popular anime, or the best-selling anime of the century, whose works are, like, most works are practically unknown in the West. So very interesting existence. And the fact that a lot of his works are, like, often, like, I don't know, untranslated. Impossible to translate, even, through so much wordplay. Like I mentioned with the Heart Under Blade thing. That it's like, if you're going to translate Nisioisin, you need to accept that a lot will get lost. And I think there's a reason that Nisioisin attracts such a cult of personality around him. Not cult of personality, because he's like a very faceless figure. But I think there's a reason why he has such a following that he does, and why that following exists in the way it does. Right now, I'm just killing time to make that 90 minutes thing a reality. But I also do just want to talk more about this, because, like, this kind of freeform talking about Nisioisin's works is fun. I have, like, a fucking video essay in my head that I've been, like, considering writing up and, like, putting together. That, I don't know, could be interesting to do, I don't know. Just, like, something with, I mentioned earlier how, like, Katanagatari and, Zadagoto have, like, a specific dynamic between the main two characters, and you see that in a lot of other Nisioisin works, with like, in my, like, notes for this, hypothetical video essay, I have it as, like, extraordinary girls and ordinary boys, but I don't think that's wholly it. I think there is a trait that, like, that connects E from Zadagoto, Shichika from Katanagatari, Koyomi from Monogatari, what's his name from Bakeku Tantai. There's definitely, like, something between them that makes them cohesive, like, as a group. I don't know. I really don't have anything else to say at this point, so I might end up cutting it short. But I don't know. I went for an hour. I think that's impressive. I was able to talk about a single topic for an hour straight, and probably could have gone for longer if I had structured it differently, but also this is my first time doing something of this type. So, I didn't really know what to be doing. I'm at 69 minutes right now. Well then, you know. Yeah, I'm gonna end it now. Thanks for coming, everyone. Good night.